Thanks a lot to Francesco Stella for this contribution, which shows, I think, that in the case of digital editions, we are again at the beginning of the story, I think, because for databases, we saw that they started long ago and that there are common standards going on, even if at the beginning they were very different one from the other. In the case of digital edition, I think that there is a common standard now, which is XML usually, but at the same time, I think I understood that in the case of the program on rhythmical text, which was presented by Francesco Stella, we were exactly in a special case study where the web was very interesting to show concretely the complexity of the circulation, the reception of this material, and using all the possibilities of representation. But we are, I think, in a case study where we can show, in a sense, the mise en scène of what was the circulation of the text. I wonder whether it's possible to extend this way of working on any kind of text. And I would like to ask first to Francesco whether he thinks, for example, that this would be possible. It would be possible to do the same with widespread texts. I would say, for example, the Legenda Aurea from Jacopo da Varazze, because he mentioned Magioni. And in this case, for example, would it be possible to imagine that if we have a text which is not exactly a critical edition, but an edition on the basis of a few selected manuscripts, would it be possible to imagine a digital edition of it, and would it be reasonable to prepare it also, because it is very time-consuming? And on the other side, is it possible to imagine that the same kind of treatment would be interesting for exceptional text, where we have a small diffusion, not very well known authors, like, for example, Guitonio Farezzo? In this case, would it be interesting to use the digital editions to go further on, because we don't have a lot of manuscripts, of examples, and then would it bring something else to our knowledge of the story of the text, because they are living objects, of course.
Thank you. Yeah, it is interesting and very big question. So, which model, or whether this model can be used for either long and long text with many witnesses, or special small text with specific requirements. I can just declare or express my experience and base some remarks on that. I have we have in Arezzo a master course on digital edition, where notwithstanding my personal preference, we teach XML encoding. But I have asked two specialists if a kind of edition with all the different data collection, like the corpus ritmorum, could be realized in XML, and they answered yes, in some years could be. Now we just need some minutes to put a text and the relevant remarks in the pertinent boxes of the database. If we had to encode the same data in XML system or TI, we simply have first to invent all the encoding, because it does not exist, not yet. And second, to realize that, you know, Marjorie Bourgard had created a wiki about the TI development, about the apparatuses, the philological, but it is extremely difficult to come to the to a table who is really comprehensive of all the possible philological phenomena that are hundreds and hundreds. TI is extremely primitive in this sense. So the problem is how, in which direction to go, or if to maintain parallel models, different models for different type of requirements. For simple edition of text with not so many witnesses, XML is easy and presents many advantages. I think in this easy software, DBR, even the legendaria could be stored in a number of reproduction. This is the input software, and we could add a number of fields of observation, not limited, without encoding anything. So,
but I know that we will have a special session later on in another day about what a critical edition, because this is a very complex problem. But if there are one or two questions, I ask you please. Yes.
I feel myself called on to defend the TEI.
Yes,
I take your point. I disagree that no philologist would ever fall in love with pointed brackets, because I did, and it's perfectly possible to get used to working in that environment. On the other hand, you don't have to get used to working in that environment. You can there are interfaces that are available for encoding text where you don't actually see. It depends on the level of the encoding. But the good thing about XML and the good thing about the TEI, which is not primitive, if it's primitive, it's the most sophisticated form for encoding text available. But the good thing about the TEI is that it's expandable.
Yeah.
So that extendable. So that if you see, and everyone does, if you see something that the TEI doesn't do, then you make a recommendation. You can't do this in the TEI, you say. The experts who sit on the TEI council then look at your proposal and they say, either he's wrong, you can do it, or they say, he's right, you can't do this, and is this the proposal that we like? Do we accept this? And normally they do. Even if they don't, you can still customize the TEI, and there's a mechanism built into it for doing that. So you can add things yourself that you have recognized as lacking, and everyone does, or many people do this. But you mentioned it also, the major advantage of the TEI is the ability to repurpose texts. I can take your texts, if you mark them up in TEI, put them into whatever environment I have developed and do other things with them. I can add my markup, I can take your markup out and put other markup in. If you make up your own system, it's very difficult for other people to do this. So once you put all the work into your TEI text, it can be used by other applications forever, in theory. So this would be it's this ability to extend the TEI, which is its one of its major advantages, and the ability then to repurpose, to reuse the data, which saves, can save an enormous amount of time. We don't want everybody sitting out there typing up the Legenda Aurea, do we? It's a waste of time once it's been done. For sure. Yes. Okay. Okay.
Other observations? Yes, Lina?
I only wanted to stress that apparently the paper by Francesco was not directly about manuscript databases, but the point that for me is very important is that in the world of manuscript cataloging on the web, there is apparently no idea to connect this system with websites having inside texts from edition of text. That was part of my point of this morning. We need to connect also people who is working on the manuscript and on the text that are in the manuscript to have a larger network, not only the catalogs, not only the description of the object, but also all the material which are inside. So something like this problematic is something different from the one of databases, but I think it should be involved in our ideas of meta search. And that perhaps also one of the issues of our debate about meta search, even if Richard is skeptic in this matter, because only with a large conception of meta searching, we can be sure that we have at our disposal all what is on the web about our problem, not only catalog manuscript, but also lots of things that are not directly involved in databases about description of manuscript, but that are directly interesting for people who are interested in working on it. So that's, I will read the Europeo in this sense in the context of
Thank you. Yes, this is right, and maybe my presentation had to be justified in this session, but I intended the relation between my paper and this the subject of this session in that the easy with digital edition can include and manage reproduction of the sources is changing the model, the theoretical model itself to edit and to publish in a critical ways the same text. So the manuscript was present as a premise, as a presupposition of the philological activity, and a presupposition who is conditioning the new way we are obliged to edit text. The question Leonardo has raised now is another one. It is I would interpret it as a question of the final user of this data. So who is consulting databases on manuscripts, manuscript catalogs, not just paleographers of scholars who are interested in the object itself, but scholars who are interested in texts and possibly in finding texts, reading texts inside a larger environment who includes both codicological data and textual data. You are skeptical about that. because the final aim of this, in a sense, the codices project of Switzerland was going in this direction, because for some manuscripts it includes transcription of the text, but it is a huge work who is never ending. I will hope and dream that it could be a easier and quicker way to link digital libraries of Latin or French or Spanish text with the digital catalogs of manuscripts and digital repertories.
Well, thank you, Francesco. And I think it's time for coffee now, coffee break.